Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 103, recording on Thursday morning, August 14th. The guest for you today is none other than Ben Leber, former NFL player, legend in the market on KFAN, host Twin Cities Live, has been on the broadcast or was for the preseason game last week and will be again this upcoming week. Believe that's on Fox 9. Love kicking some stuff regarding this team around always, whether it's on the mic, whether it's off the mic. Just a guy who knows ball and who I respect and just love hearing his opinion. So we started broadly and then segued into it, got into the defense, which he watched on Wednesday, and then talked about J.J. McCarthy and the run game and the screen game. So ton of conversation. Think you guys will enjoy it. If you're new here and watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right there. Helps us out. We've loved building this channel, doing 2 shows a week, and we're going to continue rolling with a more refined plan as we get going. I'll announce some stuff next week about that. If you've missed anything at The Athletic, full comprehensive reports from joint practices, other stories, 53-man roster projection, and much more to come, feature-related, human-related, on the people that you guys watch and root for, and that's where I do my day job, so please go check that out. This show, as always, is presented by First Resource Bank. That's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches all over the place. They love the Vikings. Tim Siegley has been texting about the Vikings. He runs the bank. Aaron Siegley, his son, cares about the team. Charlie Anderson, who works closely with those two, is also very locked in. So please go check out First Resource Bank. They really care about the community, have branches all over the place, and the online banking platform is very, very easy to use. Information on those guys is in the description below. Let's not waste any more time. I will be out at joint practices Thursday, more comprehensive coverage in a podcast form coming this weekend. Probably do a 53-man roster projection after Saturday's game, podcast form, and post that Saturday. So stay tuned for that. Here's Ben Leber on the Alec Lewis Show. All right, Ben, welcome back to the show. Really happy to have you back. What was it like being in the booth with Mr. Paul Allen and Pete Bursich on the call of Saturday's game?
Well, Alec, always good to be back with you. Hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did on Saturday. It was great. There's obviously a lot of, unknowns and some anxiety about like, how are we going to work this, like the air traffic, I was like, is PA always going to have to designate who talks? Like how are Pete and I going to not step on each other and all that stuff. So, I don't know. Pete and I, we weren't too worried about it. We're like, listen, we're standing next to each other. We can tap each other on the leg or tap each other's hand or hold your hand up. Like there's a lot of, verbal or like nonverbal cues that we can give each other to make it work. And, I would say after the, maybe the first quarter, I would say it was pretty smooth. So it was a lot of fun to be up there. It's unfortunate that I only have one more game in the booth before I go back down the sideline. So, we'll make it a good one on Saturday.
We're going to get into all the specific subjects and talkers. I was laughing. We talked beforehand, and I asked you in the radio booth before the game, like, so you ever done any booth? And you're like, you said it very nicely. You're like, yeah, I did for years. I've done this, and so you had the experience. But I still feel bad that I acted like you'd never done it before.
Don't feel bad. I actually walked away from that conversation like, man, that was kind of a jerky response by myself. Like I shouldn't. I mean, I never try to assume that anybody knows what I've done or what I've been doing. And specifically for you, I mean, you haven't been around. You're fairly new to the whole team and everything like that. So, yeah. So no, your question was, have I ever done the work in the booth before doing color commentary? And yes, to like refresh, I guess, everybody, for about 6 or 7 years, I worked with Fox Sports. Really trying to grind my way through to make it to the top. And I started in high school football. I was actually on the first live broadcast that FS1 ever did.
Wow.
And we did a game. We did a game at Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, and I was a part of that broadcast. And then I was doing high school football, and then I did Conference USA football, and then worked my way up to Big 12 and Big 10 and Pac 12, and then and then I think they're like, we've had enough of this guy. We think he's kind of tapped out, so they let me go, and I did a little more work for ESPN and CBS just here and there, but I decided like it just wasn't in the cards, man. It was a lot of work, and surprisingly for people to know, it's not a lot of pay.
Well, that's what I was actually going to ask the question just now, and this we didn't enter this podcast, or I didn't want to make, but I actually I was curious of like, was that a path that you wanted or still want? Like, I don't know a ton about what it entails.
It is. I think it'd have to be the right situation, because now I really love my job with Twin Cities Live, and it is a full-time job, so even just doing the Vikings stuff now, which I'm so fortunate that they let me do, it's a lot on my plate, and I also want to find that work-life balance and be there for my family. And I love, like right now I'm currently, kind of, I guess, the pseudo defensive coordinator for my sixth graders football team right now. So, pretty much every evening we're on the football field coaching. I wouldn't have those opportunities to do that if I was trying to chase this other dream of being a color commentator. So I'm just fortunate and happy to be in a position where I can still be around the game, still get opportunities. Westwood One will give me some opportunities late in the season. Once, if the Vikings are done and they're out of the playoffs, they'll give me some opportunities as well to get some work. So, just trying to do what I can. But to answer your question, it is still a dream of mine. I still would like to do it. It's just got to be the right timing.
Yeah. I was talking to Brian O'Neill, the Vikings right tackle, yesterday about something that I wanted to throw at you. We were just talking about like camaraderie of teams this time of year, how he was essentially like, you can have a feeling about what a team's going to be this time of year, but you never really know. So the question I kind of wanted to pose to you is, if you look back at your career, how often, I guess, was the vibe that you got during training camp comparative to how things would go throughout the course of the year? Like, or was it at all?
It's a really tricky thing, and I wish there was an easy answer, but it's so slippery. And I remember a time, it was my second year in San Diego, and we'd just come off a decent year in 2002, and we ended up going 4-12, I believe, in 2003. Now, if I had told you what the vibe was in training camp, I thought that we were going to be on their way to the playoffs and beyond. It was an awesome team. I mean, we all got along, both offense and defense. A lot of times position groups will go out to dinner like once a week or whatever, for maybe for every home game. And then some really, really close teams will get together as like an actual offense and defense, and not just the position groups. We had this weird thing where like Lorenzo Neal was putting together groups of guys, both offense and defense. And we were getting together. We were going out. We were breaking bread and having drinks. And we were tight. We were really tight. And we ended up going 4-12. So it's just a weird thing. You just don't really know. I mean, I think there's no harm in trying to recreate that every year. Because certainly you don't want to go into the season not being close and being just disjointed. So as close as you can be, that will lead to success. It's just not a guarantee.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. And we were having the conversation, and Brian's a guy who, just haven't been around him. Like, he's very sharp. He thinks about this stuff a lot. And he's one of the like core leaders that who Kevin O'Connell looks to in the locker room. So it was interesting. I thought I'd toss it at you. Were you at joint practices yesterday? I didn't see you. Probably I was on my perch, like just in my own world watching the offense. But were you there? If so, what'd you watch? How'd it feel? If you weren't there, then filibuster. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I was there. and I was probably in the minority that I was not watching our offense. It was funny because I was talking to Chad Abbott and actually Alex Boone, the former Vikings lineman. He was there with his kids, and we were talking, and they got done with fundamentals and whatever special teams, and they're actually going to do some of the competitive stuff. And they're like, "Oh, we got to go." I'm like, "Yeah, but one-on-ones are right here." And they're like, "Yeah, but that's for like our defensive line." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "We want to go watch our offensive line." I'm like, "All right." So like they walked off to go watch our offensive line against their defensive front. And I'm like, I look around, I'm like, does nobody care about our defensive front like getting after it with these offensive linemen? So basically for the first like 3 team competitive periods, I was watching all the defense, and I found myself all alone. I'm like, there's not a lot of beat writers around. Mark Craig and I were talking. He was about the only guy that was standing there, but I think everybody would just want to see how McCarthy was going to do against this defense. And I was more concerned with watching how our defense was going to play against Drake May. So I thought that there were, it's like everything else. If you're a Patriots fan and you're watching the same drill, you would say, "Oh my gosh, our offensive line is shutting their guys down." We had a handful of really good wins. Jalen Redmond looked good. Bo Richter had a nice hand swipe. Grenard looked smooth. I thought our guys performed pretty well. And then we get into the team period, and I don't know what the situation was. I don't know if it's like all 1st and 10 or if it's move the ball or whatever. They don't tell us that. But again, I would say the defense really, really shined. As you know, just because you tag off in the backfield, a lot of people don't see that, and they think the offense continues to run around, and they might break away, and it's like, the offense was successful, but you kind of forget they're tagged off in the backfield. That happens several times. I mean, I think if you add up all the rushing yards that the Patriots had in those team periods, maybe 20. I mean, we were stuffing them. We were tagging off pretty early in the backfield, pretty close to the line of scrimmage. I think we sacked their quarterbacks at least 3 or 4 times. But then again, Mac Hollins had a nice little layered throw, like a little 7 route that over our corner that he took for a touchdown, and crowd goes wild. And you would think that, hey, the Patriots are winning this drill, but I think on the whole, the defense really showed out.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Redmond, and if I'm not mistaken, he was a guy coming out of last Saturday's preseason game who you were very impressed by. I could have the wrong guy, but if I'm not mistaken, it was him. This front 7, talking to people internally, and you do this as well, like it feels like they are more over the moon about that group than they've been in the last 3 years since Kevin O'Connell got here. And you can see why. Like I went back, like you said, I was locked into the offense. I have no idea what happened other than I heard cheers from the other side of the field. But I went back and watched some video on social media of like Javon Hargrave quick win against Garrett Bradbury and Jonathan Grenard, to your point, pushing the pile. So that front 7 group, just how special do you think it can be?
Well, I think it's the strength of the defense. I think that we mentioned this in the broadcast as well. So, and I'm trying not to misquote Kwesi, but we asked him in our production meeting just kind of a similar question. Like, do you feel like this front 7 is the deepest and, in a sense, the most talented group that you have? And I was actually like really appreciative. Like, he took a second to think about it. He like kind of looked away and he contemplated, and he's like, yeah, I could say that that's true. He's like, I'm pausing because I actually think that we're really talented. He's like, I think our tight end group is really talented. He's like, I think our running back room is very talented. So like, he was trying not to just give a knee jerk reaction, but really think about it. And when he did, he agreed with us that our front, call it along with our outside linebackers, that front 5, so to speak, in a 3-4 defense. I mean, it is legit. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to get the season started, because I want to see these guys. I think they're going to carry this team at least into the bye week before this offense really gets going, and especially once we get Addison back. But it should be the strength. I think it's proven to be a strength every single day in practice, and I think the corners, are really going to benefit from these guys up front too.
Just because you were over there, did you watch Drake May? Like, what'd you think of Drake May? I plan on Thursday to spend my time just watching him, just because I want to see what he looks like. I want to just evaluate him against the defense. But what did you think of him, if anything, walking away from what you saw?
He looks the part. I think it's funny because you've been around enough to see this. So my example is, and I actually thought about this yesterday, when Drake May was in there, a lot of times they're going against our number 2 defense. It's like when we wholesale change out and our starting defense goes off to the sideline and our twos come in, like there's just a size difference. There's, mechanically they sort of walk differently. There is just a difference athletically, on the whole, when the one defense goes off and the 2 defense comes on,
and like swagger too.
The same way. There's a swagger, there's a feel, there's an aura, whatever the young kids want to say. But I felt the same way about all the Patriots quarterbacks. If you stripped the knowledge of what the number, who was behind the number, and you saw number 10, he's number 10, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, if you saw number 10, he just looks different. Like, he acts differently. He carries himself differently. He throws a little different. He runs a little different. And you're like, that guy, of all the guys that I see over there, that guy looks like he's the starter. And, like, just the eye test alone. I mean, he made some great throws. Dobbs did not look great. But just the swagger and walking around and the ownership, I think, of like being the guy, it was definitely apparent. He was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Like we've talked about it. I obviously watched the offense. I thought JJ, my read was, it's pretty much been the same throughout from the get-go of like, there's ups and and it's not perfect. Like there was a early 7-on-7 period where he was just dialed. The accuracy, the decision-making, maybe like went 5 of 6 in that little sequence. And then on a third down, sailed a throw to Jalen Naylor that landed in the defender's arms for just like an easy interception. And just like the accuracy just was not there. And then like later on in specific periods, he's ripping in breakers to Jordan Addison that are very easy to watch. And then there's just like a little bit of uncertainty at times. That's been my read of, that was my read yesterday. That's been kind of my read of training camp. I don't think it's crazy for a guy who's 22-year-old for that to be the read. He would probably agree with me. How does that hit your ear to hear that's kind of how I viewed it? And you obviously saw him play on Saturday. So how does that hit your ear?
I would say to kind of the way you started, it's kind of on par for how he's looked. I think he can make every throw. I think that he has the capability of making consistently right decision and showing the accuracy. I think the biggest thing will just be getting comfortable with all of that chaos around you. Looking good in 7-on-7, that's great. You have to show an awareness of where the routes are going to be against the defense, against the coverage. There is recognition there, and the thing is, like, those drills are set up for you to win. Offense should win in those drills because there isn't a rush. So if you're not successful 80% of the time on 7-on-7, I think that's a little bit of a red flag. Struggling sometimes when it comes to team periods, that's what happens, especially in camp. It's like you're trying new things. I was saying this before camp even started, and I wanted everybody to be like a little tempered with their expectation about watching JJ during training camp. Like, keep in mind, practice for everybody, regardless if you are a quarterback that's in your second year or a quarterback that's in your 10th year. Training camp and practices early in the season are all about experimentation. It's like taking all the things that you wanted to work on in the off season Like all of your weaknesses, you work on it, and then you try to implement those things into practice in real time. And sometimes it's unsuccessful because you're trying new things. Jonathan Grenard, and Dallas Turner is probably a better example. Dallas Turner's been working his butt off all offseason, working on new moves, whatever it is, a chop, a rip, a double hand swipe, whatever it is, flipping his hips, getting skinny. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, And so if you watch a couple bad reps and he's trying this new move, you're like, oh, he looks stiff. He looks terrible. It's this and it's that. It's like, whoa. Like, he's just trying to sharpen his sword here. Like, it doesn't always go the right way. And I think the same thing has to be given to JJ as because so much is new, he's seen a new route that he hasn't seen against this coverage. Like, all of a sudden now I know where to go with the ball, but then we're giving up pressure and now I got to get off my spot and now I have to make an off-platform throw, which I haven't done before, at this speed with this sort of accuracy. So I think there are times where it's okay for it to look clunky, mechanical, out of sorts. But we all just hope that once the regular season starts and then he gets a full week of practice against that specific defense, I think he'll be much more polished going into the games on Sundays.
Yeah. I will say this. Like, the screen game has looked phenomenal all training camp, I've thought. And it's one of those in the weeds things that maybe I care about way more than I should, but I view it, maybe rightfully or not, as just like kind of an extension of the run game. And I view that phase in general as just critical as like scaffolding to make this thing work as JJ is getting his feet wet. Like we talked about the defense, but I view that front seven and the run game as kind of like the way I've described to myself is like as scaffolding to hold this thing up as he progresses as a 22-year-old in the NFL. Is that crazy for me to say?
No, that's not crazy for you to say at all. I actually expect that the screen game is a big part of this offense. And the reason being, if I'm a defensive coordinator getting ready to play J.J. McCarthy, an inexperienced quarterback, doesn't matter if it's J.J., any first-time starter, the conversations that we have in our defensive room is, let's light this kid up. If you're not necessarily a blitzing team, but that week you will become a blitzing team because you want to make life miserable for him. You want him to hurry up his process and hopefully get a cheap interception or two or three or a couple sack fumbles, right? So what do you think every defense is going to do when they attack J.J. McCarthy, at least the first half of the season? They are going to bring so much pressure and try to make life so confusing. Well, what is one of the number one plays that you can run to mitigate a lot of blitz? It's a screen game. So if we can perfect the screen game as sort of an outlet, so it's sort of an extension of the check down game, but you have bigger playability because you have linemen out in front of you, great. I mean, yeah. I'm glad that it's working. I think we all saw the clip of Donovan Jackson just, pancaking two guys in the open field. Like, if we can put all of that stuff on tape, maybe they can pull the reins back a little bit as they're like, well, their screen game is pretty good. They've been working on it all training camp. Maybe we won't blitz as much. So it will be interesting to see once the season starts, though, because I do think that is what we're going to be facing is a lot of pressure. And if we can have the screen game up and running, well, then you're going to have to call the dogs off a little bit.
I will also say the comments around Jordan Mason from the coaching staff, from other players, from people that I've just talked to and heard from, and it's not to take anything away from Aaron Jones, who's going to have a massive role, and you know that. I mean, he's as critical of a leader for this team as anybody, but just I've noted, and my antenna has been up to how much I have consistently heard optimism and faith and excitement over what Jordan Mason's going to bring this team in the run game.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, going back to that production meeting that we had last week before the game, we talked to JJ about that, and he's like, I want everybody to realize that he's a way better pass catcher than people think. He's like, he's not just a first and second down guy. We might see him in that capacity early on, but he was very impressed with his all around game, and everybody's just like the blend of size and footwork and quickness and speed. We just don't have that on our team. Aaron Jones is just built differently. I would say right now, though, the reason why Aaron Jones is so valuable is his pass protection is legit. Like, it is hands down one of the best that we've seen in a while here. I mean, for being a little guy, he will throw his face mask in there and block somebody. It certainly was not the case. As much as I loved Xavier Scott's performance of the day, he whiffed on at least one blitz pickup off the edge, and it's like, listen, everybody makes a mistake here and there, but is that a sign of just a big gap in his development? Is just that pass blocking? It could be, and it makes sense why it would be. But we didn't see a lot from Jordan Mason on the pass blocking. I imagine it's pretty good too, but it's going to be great to have a tandem like that where you have to respect both guys.
That's one of those areas of the game where, like, on a Saturday before the game, you're on the radio show or someone who's watched ball is like, I'm curious about how the running back's going to pick up pass protection. You're like, it's always a good point because it does matter, and you just don't. As a linebacker, that's just part of it. But I every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah, I forget. I should focus on that more. Think about that more. I don't know.
Well, sometimes it is difficult to even see it because it's like, it's in the scrum of linemen, and there's just like a mass of bodies, and you're like, I'm not sure who's blocking who, but like, especially that specific one I'm talking about with Xavier, it was out on the edge. It was like, he's kind of on an island, and the guy got around him pretty easily. But yeah, man, when you notice it, and you're like, wow, like that was huge. We see CJ Ham do it a lot, and again, talking about Aaron Jones, even going back to last year. There's so many blitz pickups he had in the A gaps where he just stonewalls a guy, and it's like, man, that was the reason why we got that play off. Like, that one block right there on that blitz was a reason that play worked, and they don't get enough credit for that.
Absolutely. It feels to me, and this is me speaking, like they need another wide receiver. Obviously what happened to Rondale Moore is just brutal, and I can't like even describe how much you feel for that guy, knowing what he has overcome, and then for that to happen. But it's also like punt returner to me. They have some undrafted options, but how much confidence are you going to have in that type of player trotting out there under the lights in Chicago? How important do you feel like the wide receiver depth is?
I think it's a question mark like everybody else. Even like, let's take JA's suspension out of it. You still have to plan for, a disaster. Like, you got to plan for contingency stuff, whether it's a suspension or an injury, maybe a tweak here and there. Nobody can compare really to Justin Jefferson. We all know that. It's not like you can just go on the street and find Justin Jefferson. But finding competent guys that can play all the positions, I think that's difficult. I think it's difficult, especially in KOC's scheme. He asks these guys not to be just an X and a Z and a slot. Like, you've got to do it all. And and you also got to block. That's the one thing I was really impressed with Jalen Naylor. He really attacks the blocking in the run game, and I appreciate that. Like, we need that. It's not something that every wide receiver wants to do, but he realizes its importance for him to be on the field. So do I think that we have a set number of guys? Like, let's just say that we don't have JJ, we don't have JA for the first 3 games. Let's say that JJ's still out with his hamstring or whatever. We got real problems. We got real problems. We're gonna have to rely on the tight end game. We're gonna have to rely on the running backs. But we don't really have true playmakers. We got a lot of nice complementary players. I still think that they're looking for somebody that has a little bit more of that dog in them, that can be the guy if they need to be for a couple games. I'm just not sure that they're on the roster right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. And for the record, I think Justin will be back, but I will see. And hamstrings are tough. Anything else you're watching? I'll get you out of here. Anything else as you approach this weekend against the Patriots? Anything else in your mind?
I don't think that we gave Sam Howell enough credit. I think it was the Brosmer show in the fourth quarter. We kind of walked away being like, okay, Rip was fine. He was serviceable, but boy, Max, I mean, he looked great. It's like the talking point was J.J. McCarthy, some guy, Max Brosmer. And I don't want to forget that I think that we really truly do have a true number 2 quarterback. Like, I thought Sam played great. I expect him to play the same even this weekend. I mean, I'm going to guess that he's going to get a lot of reps again. And if he can go out there and prove once again that he can make every throw, be snappy with his decisions, look smooth as well as he did last week, then I will feel much more comfortable that we're solidified in that spot. And then after that, whether it's Rip or Brosmer, then it's this kind of fun, talking stuff. But yeah, I want to give Hal his credit.
No, it's astute. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you hopping on. We'll see you probably out there today, and talk to you soon. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, sounds good, man. See you, Alec.
And that'll do it for episode 103 of the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you guys being here. Like I said at the top, if you're new on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart or wherever podcasts are listened to, you can rate and review and all that good stuff. We are appreciative for as well. TheAthletic.com is where I do the day job, stories nonstop. I teased something for this week. It sounds like it might be next week. So there's something that's been in the works for a minute that I'm looking forward to you guys who stay tuned to the coverage, reading. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And then we'll have coverage from the game this weekend. And as I teased at the top, a 53-man roster projection podcast form with my live analysis coming Saturday evening after the game. All right, that'll do it for the Alec Lewis Show, presented by First Resource Bank. We will talk to you guys very, very, very soon.